watching the news all the time, and especially during the campaign, the election campaign in the U.S. And I think he used to see Obama, and now when he sees Obama's picture on TV, and he starts Obama, Obama.
I do too.
No, well, we have a lot of hopes, so inshallah. Okay. My name is Mahmoud Sabah, and I'm here from Balata camp, and I'm at the center. And of course, first of all, thank you for coming, and we would like to welcome you here in Palestine in general, and in particular in Balata camp and at our center here. We are the people of Balata camp. We are, of course, refugees, and I'm sure you are all aware of the term refugees, and that we are a result of the conflict between the Israeli state and the Palestinian people and the Arab countries. The story, of course, starts in 1948, after the war. Before that, the Palestinian people, like any nation on earth, normal people, civilians living their life, their daily life, farmers, merchants, villagers, who attended their businesses, their daily life as usual. And unfortunately, our life wasn't going very well at that time because through the time of the British Mandate, the Jewish people were leaving their countries, their homes of origin, from different countries, especially in Europe, of course, after the First War and the Second World War, started to come to Palestine according to the promise of Mr. Balfour of Britain to give them the promised land, the land of their dreams.
No British here, don't worry.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, it's okay. Yeah, they always have a sensitivity because of this. I mean, the guilt feeling, because, I mean, the British, I mean, they're good people, but they have done, a lot of bad things to the world. So, I mean, that's a fact of life. It's history. We cannot change this. So a lot of waves of the Jewish people were coming to Palestine, and under the help and the supervision of the British Mandate, as I said at that time, started to establish their existence in Palestine, and they started taking land in different ways, buying or conning the people and deceiving them, and some of the land was actually annexed and taken by the British mandate at that time and given to the Jewish people, until they started to have their own spots, and those spots became neighborhoods, and then they became settlements, and then turned into like a whole area, a whole maybe city that belonged to the Jewish people at that time. And throughout that time, of course, there was a revolution, there was a resistance by the Palestinian people against the British Mandate and against the new incursion of the Jewish people. It was fought badly by the British Mandate and also by the Israeli, the Jewish or Zionist settlements at that time. Ended up with the war of 1948, which instantly resulted of a lot of Palestinian people, more than 500,000 people, became refugees. They had to leave their homelands, their towns, their villages, their cities. They were forced out. A lot of places were totally destroyed by the Israeli army at that time and by the Zionist gangs at that time, as I said. People were fleeing, they were running away, and they all became refugees beginning of 1948. A lot of these people just kept walking, as I said, they were mainly civilians who wanted to run for their life. Some people went up north, they went to Lebanon, to Syria. Some people kept going maybe south or east. Some people went to Jordan. Some people went to other areas inside Palestine in the West Bank area, like Nablus. They came to Balata and the other refugee camps. Some people in the south, they went to Gaza Strip, and there is probably 2/3 of the population of Gaza are refugees living in refugee camps. For our people here who came to the city of Nablus, from 48 until the beginning of 1950, 51, maybe probably 51, there was nothing established for the refugees to stay, like no certain spots for them. They left any place that provided the shelter for them. Some people lived in caves, in schools, in mosques, in churches, in an orchard, in a backyard of a house, any place that they could find. My mother's family, for example, my mom, she was born in 1948, and her family lived for almost a year in a cave in the mountains because there was no other place for them to live. And my grandmother named her Hajar, which means an immigrant, because she was born during the time of immigration when they were leaving their homeland. All those Palestinians, of course, they were well-to-do because they were, they owned their land, they owned property, they had businesses, they had cattle, they had sheep, goats. They were all doing fine and well. But immediately after the exodus, the mass exodus of those people and becoming refugees, they have lost everything that belonged to them. And they became people with nothing. No land, nothing has left, no money, no property, nothing, and they became all poor. So they lived those years in a very bad situation. And the UNRWA was established around that time, which is the United Nations Agency for the Relief of the Palestinian Refugees, started to gather the refugees in spots. Like they came to this area and they leased a piece of land which is 1 square kilometer exactly, minus 1 dunam, from the village of Balata, and they decided that this place will be enough to make it a living space to inhabit 5,000 to 6,000 people in this area. And they have set up tents for the people because, they are refugees. And like any other refugees in the world, they were thinking that this is going to go for maybe a few months or a year or two. And then eventually something will happen and they will go home to where they came from. Based, of course, on the Security Council resolution of 194 that was issued immediately after the war, which entitles the Palestinian people the right of return to the homes of origin, and the right for compensation, and the right to reclaim a property. And of course now we are in 2009 and nothing has happened. We are still refugees, we are still living generation after generation, we are still living in the refugee camps all over the world, and nothing was implemented from that resolutions. And a lot of UN resolutions, Security Council resolutions happened after this. And of course, nothing happens, nothing works with the Israeli government. It's always, nothing. And of course, thank you for the veto that happens all the time, for anything towards the Palestinian people. It's not you. And as I said in the beginning, Balata was the camp here. It started with tents, and it was supposed to be enough space for 5,000 to 6,000 people. Time goes by and people had to live in tents until the beginning of the 60s. We are talking about 8 to 9 years for those families living in tents. And of course there was a public bathroom for each group of tents that people can use. No water, no electricity, no infrastructure. And people had to go and walk to, there is a water spring in the village of Balata, to go get their water, and of course live on candles or, kerosene lamps or something like this. But it was okay. And they managed to continue living in this situation. In the 60s, the United Nations decided to do a change for the infrastructure of this camp and started to build a 3x3 room. It's a brick room for each family to replace the tent. And of course the space was not enough, but at least it has a door that you can close and have a closed door for your family to live in. For us, the Arab families, we don't like the small family, like 1 child, 2 children. That doesn't exist in the Palestinian community or in the Arab community. We like to procreate a lot. We have to have 5 and 6 and 10, and some families have 15 children. So this is the norm in the Palestinian society. We have to make up for the loss, all the time.
Especially actually during the Intifada, first one during curfew time. So the blues of birth has become very high. It's true. Don't laugh, man.
Yeah, it is. It is reality.
So nothing you do under curfew. You cannot go out. So they have something else to do.
just make babies, you know.
Yes, exactly.
No electricity, with candles and romance.
It's very romantic.